Hello everyone and welcome back to another Pavlov tutorial video. So last time we were trying to make a chicken spawner and that was this little bad boy right here, and there was a lot of issues that we ran into where I could not for the life of me figure out how to do half of the stuff that I used to be able to do. But after a little bit of digging and messing around with this stuff, I feel like I'm getting a little bit better and a little bit closer to how it used to be. So much so that I even reinvestigated how some of these skins worked and how the assets for these work. And actually, I was just looking at these, and I remember that I used Blender at the time to create each of the. Mostly, I used Blender for the skeletal mesh, and then from there I was able to make the physics asset and then the skeleton itself here in the engine. But going back to this chicken spawner, boy, there was a lot of stuff I really did wrong. And I have since remedied it a little bit better. It is no longer called the chicken spawner. I was messing around with it a little bit, and it is now called the multi-use asset. And this is kind of what the focus of today's video is going to be about. We're going to kind of showcase a little bit about how to be more efficient with blueprints and how to use a single blueprint trigger or collider to do multiple things at once using switch statements. This time I am recording my full screen, so hopefully you can actually see the little menus that were missing last time. I didn't realize that OBS was not capturing these, so I do apologize for the last video not being able to see these things. So going forward, this is just how I'm going to record. I think I did this last time as well, a few years ago. So you weren't able to see that when I was doing the blueprint class, I was using the base actor instead of the trigger base, which just had everything built in. I don't actually know if it made much of a difference the way I did it or just having it pre-made and preset. It may not have made much of a difference, but either way, I would just recommend using the correct parent class to begin with. It just, one, simplifies things. It just helps alleviate a lot of future problems like you saw where the cube was not going through the sphere that I had before, and that was because I didn't have the sphere that I created actually block collisions and work like a real sphere. So that was not very helpful at all. So let's go ahead and jump into what the multi-use blueprint is. So I have changed the chicken spawner from last video, which we will touch up on how to properly do a chicken spawner in this one because I feel really bad about how that one went. But if we open up our multiple use asset, and we'll go through this very, very much so. So just to recap on how to do a chicken spawner, because I totally messed that up last time. When we have an event overlap using the correct class, which is the collision component. In fact, actually, why don't we just go ahead and redo this the proper way? So we'll spend the first half doing this. So first, we will create a blueprint class. Good gosh. We will create a sphere trigger base. We will select this. I'm going to call this correct chicken spawner on impact. Okay. I will go ahead and open this up, and you can see it auto-created the sphere trigger collider at the start. And this is kind of where I messed up on the first video. And basically what it does is it already sets all the settings by default. It uses the correct default configurations for overlaps. It generates the events. This is what I didn't have set properly the first time, so it was going to create problems in the end, regardless of what I did, which really sucked. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on this component sprite. We're going to add a sphere because we're going to start off with being able to see it first. We're going to go up here to materials. I do already have volumes already made. If you do need to figure out how to make materials, you should reference the other video on making materials for Unreal. But for this purpose, we're just going to go ahead and use the ones that we already had pre-made. But yes, feel free to check out that tutorial. It is still relevant, I promise. We're going to go ahead and do 2 by 2 by 2. That's pretty good. Okay, perfect. Then what I'm going to do for this sphere is I am going to go ahead and take off all the collision because I don't want to have anyone be able to step on it and do anything. I am going to take off the overlap events because we just want the collider to do that, the trigger. We don't want the sphere to really do that. Not that it matters. We're not necessarily doing anything on it, but I just don't need it to do that. Okay, great. We compile it. It's still good. Perfect. We're going to go into the event graph, and I did notice this in my last video as well, that this event actor overlap was already here. And it is just here by default, which is nice. And it just gets moved when you create a new one. But I am just going to go ahead and take it from here. So what we're going to do is we're going to first pull a line. And I'm sorry again that you could not see this screen because of the last video. But now we're going to be good on that. We're going to grab a switch has authority for this server side stuff. When it has authority, we are always going to add a little bit of delay just for the sake of it. The actor that is colliding, we want to make sure it is a player, so we are going to cast to pawn. And then what I didn't do last time as well was I didn't actually connect these, which was strange that I didn't do that, but again, it's just been a little bit of time. And then from this pawn, we want to get the Pavlov player status by pawn. And what's nice is when you drag from these, it actually already auto connects these, which is super good. And since the Pavlov player status by pawn has a boolean, which is really nice, we'll just go ahead and pull this and we'll do a if statement or branch. We just want to check to make sure it's actually a player that's going through it. And if it is true, then we go ahead and do spawn chicken. Oh, and I'm going to take off the context sensitive parts. Okay. And this is another part that I messed up. I didn't realize that it said Pavlov game logic is the target. That is the case. And this was another message you couldn't see, but I saw that it was authority only for server side stuff. I believe this is why you have to have the switch has authority. I could be wrong, but that's okay. The target is game logic, so we are going to get the game logic from the Pavlov API. Great. And since we want the chicken to spawn at the location of the blueprint that we put, we're going to do this. Get transform, actor transform, which is the self. And that is that. When we compile, should be good. And that is our proper chicken spawner. Very nice. So when we pull this in, we will have our little blue sphere. And there is our chicken spawner. Done in quite literally a 16th of the time. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at this multi-use spawner, or this multi-use trigger collider. Because there's something about this that I think was really nice that I've done in the past, is that, as you can see, I have multiple skin box thingies over here. And when I hit play, you'll notice that, well, before I hit play, you'll notice that they all have this green box around them. They all have text. They all have this blue thing. But when I hit play, they change. These suddenly become blue. These ones suddenly become purple. And these over here, which are just the normal player skins, are green. So what happened there? Like, why are these ones, why do they change? Well, it's because I use one asset, the skin box, but I have multiple different paths or branches or switches, or different cases essentially, for different things. So for this one, it is the tester skins. This is just a thank you to all the people who've done testing with me a long time ago. And these are just special skins that only they can use. And then these are my custom player skins, which I just separate based on the custom skins from the player skin table. And to denote difference, I give them a blue box. And then the normal player skins are the ones that are built into the Pavlov game itself. such as the clown, the farmer, you know, all the ones that you may have seen from just normal gameplay. You can also find these under the item IDs in PavlovVR wiki, which are all of these here, which I believe I made a video about this, and this is kind of coming back to me. This is a little more familiar, but yes, that is these ones that you have normally seen. So let's talk about the multi-use. So let's say I want to do multiple different things with the event overlap in one asset, so that way I can save space on blueprints and maybe I don't have to do a bunch of things. So I have the chicken spawner, for instance, as one of these cases, but I also want to make it change skins, and I also want to make it terminate the player as well, because why not? This is where something handy like the switch statements come into play. And there's a bunch of different types of switch statements that Pavlov offers. And really, honestly, the Unreal Engine offers. And you can find these by just doing a simple switch on, and then you'll have just this giant list of things. There's so many things that you can do based on different cases. And for the simplicity of this video, I'm just going to talk about the switch on name, because this can definitely get a little bit complicated. But as you can see, you can definitely play around with these and you can find a lot of different cool ways to do it. But we're going to be focusing on switch on name. And if you want to mess around with another simple one, switch on int is another good one, which is just switching on different numbers, of course, like 0, 1, 2, whatever, so on and so forth. So what I did was essentially I built out 3 different cases. I have a chicken spawner, which we just talked about earlier. I have a skin changer, which we will quickly go through. So what we have is a switch on authority going to a pawn. And from that pawn, we break out the pawn into a player status. And from the player status, you can actually drag this out and create. You can break down the player status. And since the player skin is targeting a player proxy, you can drag the target, create a player proxy, and since the proxy itself is looking for a pawn, the Pavlov player status for each player very conveniently has its pawn. You can connect these two and bam, there you go. Now, for the skin, you just can create a variable. And this we'll talk about a little bit here in a second as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and make this one instance editable so that way we can determine what kind of skin we want. All right. And then for the other branch, which was the unalive path, we have a switch has authority. We cast it to the pawn. The object, of course, for this is the pawn. We just want to make sure it's a player. Same thing as we've done for the last 2 ones. And then as a pawn, we want to apply damage, which in this case, its target is a pawn or an actor. Thankfully, we could just connect the overlapping pawn, and we will apply 9,999 damage. And the type of damage I chose was a knife. You could do whatever kind of damage you want. I think a knife is just very convenient. So there we go. And then everything on the switch statement is dictated by a selection. And that selection in this case is a string or a name. And what I have here are 3 different branches based on a text, which I have here. And you can create more by just simply hitting this add element button and it'll create more, whatever. And the way a switch statement works is it is based on, whoopsies. Well, that's actually okay. It's based on what you type in to your it's based on the exact case sensitive string that goes into it. So for example, I want the first case to be a chicken spawner. So whatever the variable is that goes into this, if it's the exact case sensitive string as we'll say chicken for this one, then the case will execute this path. All right. In the second one, I'm gonna say skin change. And you'll notice that I'm keeping it lowercase in this case. It's just because it's more convenient. It keeps any sort of ambiguity out of it, just in case, because it is, I believe it's case sensitive. And if you have anything that is uppercase or numbers or whatnot, and you don't type it exactly, I believe it will mess up. So skin change, if it's that one, it'll go this way. And number 3 will be the path of damage. I'm going to call this unalive, and it will execute this path over here. Great. Now this variable, I need it to be instance editable. The reason for that is that every time I pull this into the map, I want to be able to change each one based on the text that I put in, and we'll show you what that means in just a quick second. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I save it. I've got all this. Remember to spam save all because you're gonna need that. And now we've got this. So, ooh, very cool. So now you'll notice down here at the bottom right, we've got these 2 default empty boxes. We have skin and we have what to do. Now, if you recall, in the multiple asset thing, we had 2 variables that we defined and made instance editable. We had skin and we had what to do. Because these are instance editable, that means that every time we pull one in, there's going to be these boxes and we can tell it what to do. So let's say I want this one to be the chicken spawner. So I'm going to call this chicken. And since it's chicken, And since this one is going to be the chicken, I'm going to ignore the skin. I don't care what the skin is because it's never going to execute that path. And this one, I want it to be skin change. Now I need to be aware of what skin it is. So I'm going to call this clown. Okay, great. But you see how these are different, but they maintain their own identity essentially. And that's the point of making instance editable ones. They're not both going to be the same. And now I'll create the third one and I will call this the unalive. So now we have all 3 different methods and versions. And now if you want to get even more creative, like I did with the skin boxes over here, you can actually have the materials change by adding more to each path and do a set material and tag the material that was the sphere and change it to different volume colors. That's essentially what I did for each of these to give them their unique different colors when the game starts, like purple, blue, and green. Pretty simple stuff. And that's pretty much how the multi-use asset works. One, it just makes it so that I have one asset, one BP that can be used for multiple different things. Well, that's pretty much all there is for the custom asset and the fix for the correct chicken spawner. So thank you all for watching, and I appreciate you all for sticking with it and checking in. Again, feel free to comment down below on the different types of tutorials that we should be checking out. This is MaJerati, and I'll see you in the next one.